Hello and welcome to Mad About Sports for yet another stream. And today we are going to be talking about World Cup previews as we continue on an edition of talking about all the teams before the World Cup. And today we are here to talk about the Australian team, obviously the five-time world champion. And here they are coming into India as a very strong unit before the World Cup once again. Now, when we talk about this team, the Australian team, they often give us memories of what they can possibly do on the big stage. They are the world beaters. They've gone on to win world championships for fun at one point of stage. And here we are going to be talking about what they really bring into the offense. Now, if you talk about the Australian team in the last few years, they had done pretty well if you look at the way in which how they've shaped up as a white ball unit. And just to add to that, they've got new captain Patrick Cummins, who will be captaining his first ever World Cup. Remember in 2019, nobody really rated the Australian side to go deep in the tournament, but come the World Cup, they did play the semi-finals as well. So in World Cups, you never write off an Australian team. And now once again in this World Cup in India, given the experience of all these players having played in India, you can say they are going to be a very, very strong team in this World Cup. And then just talking about what they bring into the offering. Now, if you talk about the Australian team, you have to say they've got a squad which is very well rounded. They've got almost all the bases covered in terms of a lot of departments. Now we talk about all rounders, and this Australian team has got plenty of all rounders to start off with, and that is where you'll have to say that this is a team to really watch out for a lot of reasons. Number one, you have to say they've got players to really go out there and maybe do a job on the given day. They started their opening campaign in against India in Chennai. Remember that that's going to be an interesting challenge for a team like Australia to start off the campaign in Chennai, because you can say Australia is not a team who really enjoy playing the spinning conditions, but still, if you have to really give an opportunity, whether given the likes of Zampa, given the likes of Glenn Maxwell, and given the record what they had against India the last time around they played against India in Chennai. Remember earlier this year in March during the ODI series, they did play in Chennai and they did go on to defeat India as well. That was Ashton Agar and Adam Zampa's clear cut brilliant performance. After they play in against South Africa in Ekana Stadium, remember that another opportunity for them. Here is a very interesting venue as well. If you talk about the Ekana Stadium, what we saw in IPL was something very different because they play a couple of their matches in Ekana Stadium. Remember, they play against Sri Lanka, then they play against South Africa as well. So two of their matches they play in the Lucknow Stadium. So first three games they are going to be playing in spin friendly pitches. So this is where the squad is going to be very interesting. If you look at that squad, I'll just put it on the screen once again. Yeah, you can understand that Patrick Cummins, massive, massive player for this team, leading the team for the first time. Remember how he's going to be starting off as a captain is going to really, really set the tone for the World Cup as well. Now, if you talk about the main players, right, you have to talk about Mitchell Marsh opening with David Warner in this team because this team has got a lot of combinations depending on how Mitchell Marsh and David Warner is going to play. Prakash says hi. Hi, Prakash. Welcome on the stream. Yeah, so when you talk about David Warner and Mitchell Marsh, I think they are the ones who are going to set the tone for this team. Then, if you talk about other players now, some of the main players in this team, at number three, you will have a Steve Smith walking into this team because his experience playing in those countries, especially turning tracks, you have to really give Steve Smith that upper hand because he's going to be a massive factor into this team. And at number four, Labuschagne, last minute change into the squad, replacing Ashton Agar, who was ruled out of the World Cup. Manus Labuschagne, who had a fantastic South African series. Yeah, even you saw that performance in the last game against India as well. Scored a brilliant 70 odd, and you really saw what he can really bring into the fore. That is that experience of playing spin at the same time, taking the game deep at times and can offer a couple of overs with the ball if need be. But majorly, him at number four and Steve Smith at number three is going to give them a lot of solidity because from there on, you're going to see a power pack batting unit. You're going to see the likes of Glenn Maxwell, you can say Cameron Green, or an Alex Carey. Now, the question or the shootout is going to be between Cameron Green and Marcus Stoinis. Now, if you look at Marcus Stoinis' one-day record, it's abysmal. You can say it is not the best of records to look into. Now, if you look at the squad as well, if you talk about Marcus Stoinis, the player, Aussies are clear favorites. Yeah, we will see about that because are they the favorites or not? Looks good on paper, but about how they translate this form into the games as well. Because now, in half an hour time, they're going to be playing against Pakistan in Hyderabad to see how they go about it, because it's a very big game as well. Right before the World Cup, a good test against Pakistan. I know they're not going to be being at their absolute best, but not a bad hit out for the batters at least. But here, once again, going back to the options what they have in the middle order. If they want to go in with Cameron Green and Glenn Maxwell, I think Glenn Maxwell is a sure start from this team. I think he is one of the first names to be picked in this team because of the second spinner not being there. So he invariably walks into this team at number five, number six. So he's there. It's going to be the finisher who's going to, and most likely he's going to bat number five for this team because of what they're going to really do, because of what they really bring into this team as well. Because he's one of the better spin players. Its domination against spin is going to be one of the factors why it's going to be promoted up the order on days as well. Man, happy for Labushin is there, well deserved, absolutely well deserved. He's a class player, and uh, and class trash talker as well. Absolutely, there's no talk. There's no question in that, because he's someone who deserved the place. You can say a lot of people were surprised when the squad was announced and he did not find a name for himself in the squad. But you saw that performance. Right after that, he translated that in terms of his performance. He went on to play well against South Africa there, scored a brilliant 100 there, scored a 80 being a concussion sub. Manus Labuschagne and concussion sub is a story which everybody knows well about. So here is an opportunity for Manus Labuschagne to take that and translate that into a big tournament like World Cup. His first major World Cup. He's never played in any of the ICC World Cups before this as well. So for him, first major World Cup, he has to go out there and perform. But when you talk about the number five, number six conundrum, what they have, I think it ultimately comes down to a shootout. And in the shootout, I think Cameron Green holds the aces at this point over someone like Marcus Stoinis. Now, it's obvious that Marcus Stoinis' experience of playing at number five, number six in India might be a factor. But again, going back at the current form, Marcus Stoinis in one day cricket hasn't been the best. Now, if you talk about some of his best scores, you have to go back in 2019 where he scored that 190, or the brilliant 100 he scored against New Zealand. So this is where Marcus Stoinis will be not given that consideration, and that is where I think Cameron Green, given the fact that he is a better bowler as well, can ball up front with the new ball, can be a second change, and he's got something to working for him. But then if Marcus Stoinis will have to get a game, if he can go out there and prove in today's warm up match for that, like if he can go out there and take on the bowling, all of a sudden the wave might just change in the Australian camp, and they might want to go in with Marcus Stoinis because he's a more experienced one. He's got experience of playing at number six, number seven in India. Then you have an Alex Carey. There's definitely Alex Carey as to he can be floated up in the batting order if you want a left-hander to come in the middle order as well. He can come in number five, he can come in number six, number seven. So that is where he comes to the place. Then you have the three fast bowlers in Patrick Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, and the sole spinner in Adam Zampa. This is how the Australian team is going to be lining up. This is going to be the top 11. And this is how they want to go in as well. But remember, there's no Ashton Agar, so that conundrum of having that extra spinner at number eight really goes out of the window. With Patrick Cummins being the captain, he's a sure start from this team. And then to add to that, then you have a Josh Hazlewood who'd want to have a good World Cup, and Mitchell Starc in World Cups is a story for itself. 49 wickets in the two World Cups at an average of 20. And remember what he's going to do. He's already shown what he can do. Picked up a hat trick against Netherlands in the warm up game, and just to add to all this, this is where you have to say Australian team is one of the best out there in terms of the balance what they bring. Now, if you talk about some of the major players right now, as I mentioned, they're going to be playing the first three matches in spin friendly conditions. You have to say their biggest challenge is going to be how their batters are going to counter spin. If David Warner is going to be getting out cheaply to spin, or for the matter, Mitchell Marsh might not take spin alone, and if Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne get stuck by consuming a lot of dot balls in those first three games, if the pitches are going to turn, that's provided the pitches are going to turn. Remember, the Lucknow pitch, we are still unsure of what Lucknow pitch we're going to get. And Chennai as well, it's the first game of the tournament. You might not get a turning wicket in Chennai, but traditionally speaking of what you're going to get, India in a spinning track is not going to be easy because India will have three quality spinners. Sri Lanka, definitely not easy to be playing in Lucknow against them. And then they play against Pakistan in Bangalore. You have to say that's going to be one of the high scoring contests, because playing in Bangalore, you have to say likes of Maxwell, likes of David Warner, or for that matter, likes of Marcus Stoinis or Cameron Green, they are going to be in the hunt, or Mitchell Marsh. That small ground in Bangalore with the ball traveling quicker, you have to say that game is going to be a high scoring one. Australia will really fancy the Johnsons because after they play Netherlands once again, obviously Netherlands is going to be not might be an easy task, but they play Delhi against Netherlands, and then that game against New Zealand. And this is where it's going to be interesting as well. They play this game in Dharamshala. It's going to be a 50-50 contest here because the pitch is going to be flat. And if at all you're going to get any movement, I think both the sets of bowlers are going to be in the game. Both Trent Bolt, Matt Fentry, Mitchell Stark, Josh Hazelwood is going to be in the contest. And the pitch is going to really help the batters who are going to go out there and apply themselves. And then comes a big game, England versus Australia in Ahmedabad. So this is a big game for them as well, because remember, whatever we've seen of Ahmedabad track, it could be flatter. And towards the last when it can seem around because of the riverbed being there and the pitch being moist underneath, especially under the lights, ball tends to move around. So if Australia can go out there and have a good and strong batting performance in Ahmedabad, I think that's where they really fancy a chance. Because remember, they finished off the World Cup by playing Afghanistan and Bangladesh, and Afghanistan in Wankhede. I think Australia will be favoring themselves, and also they play Bangladesh in Pune. So the Wankhede, Ahmedabad, Wankhede, and Pune games is where I think from Dharamshala to Pune, the last four games, I think that's where they'll really feel, okay, wait a minute, I think we can just go out there and maybe score as much as possible. The first three games are going to be their biggest challenge, because from the Pakistan game onwards, they will really fancy playing in surfaces which really suits their style of play, where their batters will really fancy to go out there and score a lot of runs. The first three games, if they have a small jitter, they still have time to catch up, but then they play stronger oppositions and good batting decks. So the first three games, India is not going to be an easy challenge. Definitely opening game of the tournament in Chennai against the crowd, against all outs. Then come against South Africa in Lucknow. You have to say Australia will start favourites in that game because of what you have seen of South Africa in conditions where it turns a lot. Even though South Africa have a lot of good spin players, but you have to give the chance a little bit for edge to Australia at this point of stage as to what they can bring on the table as well. Now, if you go back to the last 4 years, what they really bring, you have to say, Australia haven't been the best of teams, especially in the white ball format, especially in the one day format. They've really struggled here and there, and then you have to say, just to add to all of these factors, you have to say at some stage, Australia will want to peak right in this tournament. How are they going to peak is going to really define their World Cup success as well. Now, with Australian teams, historically, they know how to peak at the right point of stage. Now, you might see them might falter here or there. You can't say they'll have the most invincible run like what they had in invincible run, what they had in 2003, 2007, or for the matter, 99 as well. They came closer to defeats, but they still were able to pull out in the last moments. So that is how Australian teams were always modeled, as they had match winners coming in saving them. If you look at this Australian team as well, they've got individual match winners, but do they have that firepower, that X factorness to go out there and win a World Cup? Maybe that is where the biggest question is going to lie. You have to say at some stage or the other, you would want the big players to step up and big players to step up heavily. And that's why this World Cup is going to be massive. It's going to be last World Cup for David Warner as well. So considering that, you might have just want to say, looks like Rain will be the man of the series. Yeah, maybe in southern part of India, especially, talk about Chennai, talk about places like Trivandrum, where the matches are going to be played. Rain is going to be a factor. Then you can expect the monsoon to set off lately. So this is going to be a major factor considering this tournament. And I think this tournament is going to really, really come down to dew as well. Now, it's the onset of winters, northern India, places like even the western parts of India, like Ahmedabad, or come go up to Dharamshala, Delhi, or for the matter, even in Mumbai, you see a lot of dew being set at this point of stage in the year. So it all comes down to that. If there's a lot of dew and in the second innings, you might just see a lot of teams will prefer chasing, and they will really back themselves to chase and win totals, because there could be some heavy dew come the first week of November, come the World Cup finals, and towards that trend as well. I think two things are going to be really decisive in this tournament. One is definitely rain, especially in southern part of India. Then secondly, it's going to be dew in the northern part of India. So these two things in both the parts of India are going to really decide. You come, and I think playing in early winters is going to be a challenge for a lot of teams as well, because it's the first time you're going to see cricketing season really had a full fledged or a World Cup being played in winters, like close to the winters. And that's why it's going to be very interesting for that matter, because you usually see the World Cup being played in March, April, or that part of the year. Even when India went out to win in 2011, it was usually March and April. But this is a different World Cup. It's the start of the season, fresh pitches. You might see a very competitive World Cup because of this. You might see a lot of these teams which can possess good fast ballers come into the offering as well. because some of the conditions, the pitches are going to be newly laid as well. So there is where you want to have players and teams to go out there and really, take that next big step, which is to go out there and perform in these new conditions. For India as well, it's going to be a new challenge. It's not going to be easy because India do play a lot of cricket in October and November. If you look at, that's a peak season for them. But have they played a tournament in this part of with these conditions? We go back in time, and some of the big series is being played in November, October. It's all been high scoring series. If you go back in 2017, New Zealand was in India, or 2013, Australia was in India in October, November, or for the matter, South Africa was in India in October, November in 2015. You'll always see one factor being attached to it. It's been all high scoring series. And that's primarily because of the factor that the pitches are going to be fresh. And to add to that, the dew being coming into play in the second half of the game. So that is where you will have to say this World Cup is going to be a high scoring one on flatter decks. You already saw that in some of the warm up games as well. Go to that game against Pakistan and New Zealand, where in Hyderabad there was slight bit of dew and New Zealand were on top of the game. So this is where it's going to be a very interesting World Cup as to how the teams are going to really counter that factor of dew and to go back how they can really suffice and overpower with batting. It's, you can say some of the surfaces might turn. That's going to be interesting as well. Can the Chennai surface stick to its traditionals of turning, or Lucknow surface from what we've seen in the IPL in the recent past turn? If those surfaces play to their originality, then you might see a very interesting World Cup as well, because then you might see difference in different surfaces. You might see slight bit of edge to teams who possess better spinners. But at the same time, if the dew doesn't come into play, then you might see a different game altogether. If you go back to the series which was played between Australia and India, you saw when the dew did not really come and play a part, both the game in Mohali or for that matter, the game in Indore or in Rajkot, the dew did not really play a part. So what that really meant was the teams chasing really found it really hard on some of the occasions. The pitch did turn slow. Now, if the dew doesn't come into play, whatever you say in a 100 overs game, 50 overs, and after that, there on the pitch will break down. That's the Indian traditional pitches, because the Indian soil are not the Australian ones where the pitch is going to stay the same hard and same throughout the course of the 100 overs. You will see the pitch break down, because especially in certain regions, let's talk about the eastern or the southern regions, you might see black soil pitches being used. That is easier for a breakdown. Now, for example, the game in Rajkot was a black soil pitch. You saw the pitch breakdown, or the game in Indore, or for the game in Mohali, you might see the pitch breakdown. Even on red soil surfaces, the ball might turn and bounce a little bit as well through the course of 100 overs. That's what I'm talking about. From the 80 overs, from the time the 30 overs have been played by the second innings batting side, if there's no dew, you will see the pitch break down. You will see the pitch slow down. But if there's dew, then it's going to come on to the bat like dream, as batters would like to say it. So this is where the World Cup is going to really depend on how dew is going to be a factor, because often what we have seen in these kind of conditions in this part of the year is always that the dew tends to take control of the games, and results are based on toss win the games. But at least from what we've seen the Australia India games, the dew did not really set up. But November, October, how far can we see dew set in? That's time is going to say. Or if there's going to be a lot of rain around, that's going to really turn the course of games as well. Because from what warm up games in Guwahati, in back down, come down to southern part of India, a lot of rain around, and that is where it's going to be very interesting as well. That so if you have to really talk about how things are going to really turn around, you have to say Australia versus India is going to be the game which is going to really set the tone for a lot of reasons. And then from there on, then you are going to see a different paradigm shift in terms of how things are going to really take its own control and see where things will turn up as well. Now, if you talk about Australia's chances in the World Cup, they definitely have a squad of 9 on 10, at least on paper, to go out there and win the World Cup. But can they go out there and really set the tournament on fire like what they always do? Now, if you talk about the tournaments of the past, or 2015 World Cup for that matter, or for that matter, when you talk about the 2019 World Cup or 2007, 2003, they always bring with a squad in paper. Now, this is their opportunity to take the next leap. And with this new generation of players under a new captain, the World Cup is going to be a very interesting tournament for the Australian team. And that's why if you look at some of the main players, in this team, you have to say the likes of Marcus Labuschagne, Mitchell Marsh, David Warner, Travis Head if he returns. It's going to be very interesting. And when you talk about bowling, you have to talk about Adam Zampa factor alongside Mitchell Stark. If they can all do contribute into this team is going to be the team to really beat. And if they really peak at the right time, they might be the favorites for the World Cup as well. Definitely making it to the top four, according to me. Give them a 60% chance to make it to the top for 65%, until and unless if they really falter by playing some bad cricket, which I don't think, which I can expect from an Australian team. Come the World Cups, they always tend to play at a game which is above their par. And that is where I think Australian team maybe are good enough to go out there and win the World Cup, or maybe play in the finals and make it to the top four. So the winning chances definitely will be 20 to 25 to 30%, because anybody who makes the top four can go on to win the World Cup as well. That's about it from us. Thank you for joining. And do let us know what are your comments about the Australian team. And do come back onto the stream once again as we review more of these teams. Take care. See you all very soon. Bye bye.